people know you obviously for your tennis.
I'd been so hard on myself, so intense, so into failure. Never quite got my singles back on track because of it.
How do you quiet the mind?
Golf is a big one for me.
Yeah.
So one thing I missed was competition. I have to compete, and I like that. I can't compete in tennis because I'm either too good or too old.
Your brother got involved in drugs.
He would not talk to people about who I was until I retired because he didn't want them coming at me for money. You know, I had a little period there where I've lost both my brothers. Dad was a bit earlier, lost my mum a couple of years ago. I've had all those big adult things to deal with. I was never as intense as I was just before that.
When did you meet Mark?
He was the group of Aussie players that were set on tour, and we were chasing them. You know, we were trying to join them.
As far as doubles goes, are you some of the best pair of doubles that has ever been together?
I think we rate in, you know, the top 3 in the world.
Wow.
I've kind of walked into this space now where I've always been known, and people go, "Oh, isn't he a nice fellow?" And you go, "I'd hope so."
I suppose because it's not always what they've seen. Not of you.
I mean, I was a bit temperamental. Looking back on and reflecting on what I've done to say I've done well.
After that retirement, was there that feeling of like, oh gosh, I feel like my identity has changed?
Well,
Todd at Woodbridge, I have to firstly welcome to a life of greatness.
thank you. It's I don't know if I love the title. I don't know if that is my title at this point.
I have no doubt that it is. You obviously will not remember this. We met when I was about 10 years old. It would have been 10 or around that age, 12 years old.
That's all right. I'm breathing better because I thought you were going to say like a couple of years ago.
No. It was like either 10 or 12 or something like that. And I was obsessed with tennis when I was little. Like I played the whole time. I went to, during the school holidays, I'd do like tennis comps and all that kind of jazz. And so there was obviously one day where I did like a tennis comp or whatever it was, you know, during the school holidays, and you were there. And I thought all my Christmases had come at once because you were my idol, one of my idols in tennis. And I had forgotten that until you came, because then I like lost interest in tennis.
Yes,
I'm being honest.
life changes.
As I got older, I haven't played for years. But then I was thinking when I was writing questions, oh my God, I remember when I would like actually love Todd Woodbridge when I was young.
So come the full circle, Sarah.
Exactly. So now we're sitting here now. Who would have thought? But it made me think of the question. That must be a heavy load to be an idol in a lot of young kids' lives, especially way back when you were playing, and they look up to you. How did you manage that?
It's an interesting point that you make, because only now do I think about that. So only now are you aware of that. When I've just been watching some tennis on the TV before coming in here, and you know, obviously I commentate, and a lot of my commentary is about your experiences.
Yeah.
And you can't talk about yourself. You shouldn't do that in commentary.
Oh, really?
You should express what's going on there
from
your experiences, but not about you. You don't say I. Commentary should never be I.
I never knew that.
And
that's interesting.
And so, in a sense, I now look at the players knowing what they're going through, or knowing what I was going through. When you're younger and, you know, people come up and around you, you're like, leave me alone. I just got to do my job. I just need to be completely focused, and you can brush those things off because you're so in that zone, as people talk about. You so want to do well. Your daily well-being is based upon your result, your win and your loss, and hopefully not too many losses. And so when you bring that up, it's like I would have been so, you know, siloed in my focus. I wouldn't have paid attention to it. And sometimes when you've had a really bad day or whatever, and you might brush someone off and not have signed an autograph back in those days, because you used to sign autographs.
100%.
You didn't have photos.
Yes.
You might have a photo, but not a selfie and all that.
If you wanted a photo, you had to bring a full camera.
That's right. And that reflected upon a person's view of you, how you interacted with them, whether he was nice or whether he was not. And they wouldn't have a clue about what was going on in your head, your space, on court or off. And now I have a greater understanding of that, and that really has kind of molded me from my 40s into my 50s about how I treat people and also understand what younger people are going through.
Yeah. Because you probably were in your 20s, I assume, when I was at that tennis.
Probably early 20s.
Yeah, tennis camp thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Mum used to take me to the tennis, right? And I would always go with her. And that was back in the day where the tennis didn't have all these like activations and stuff.
Yes.
It was literally just the
You
tennis,
just had
right?
that. Yeah.
And so I would run up when the game had finished and I would hang over the side with like a pad, getting someone to sign like an autograph, like you mentioned, because there wasn't any photos or anything. Yeah. And I loved doing that. And I got like all the big players because I loved like Pete Sampras and Agassi and that. And I have to tell you this funny story. So I was hanging down around the side one day and Michael Chang, do you remember him?
Of course I do,
Yeah. So he signed my autograph and he wrote, "Jesus loves you, Michael Chang."
Yes. So I always had
as a Jewish person, I was like, oh, okay.
So I always. So you had
That's interesting.
You had that issue. Yeah. I had the issue. I played him a lot. I played him maybe 15 times in my singles career, and every time I beat him about 3 or 4 times out of those 15. So he had the upper hand. But I won some big ones. I beat him at Wimbledon.
Wow.
But every time you lost to him, he thanked the Lord on the court, and I think, well, what about me? Where's my love today?
I didn't realise he was so religious.
Yeah, very.
Wow.
Always was. But always, that's another topic of conversation. Like when you go down the religious route of sporting people who get out there and grind in front of you in terms of, tight call, that one. There's all those sorts of things go on. And, then they bring that to the court. I just love straight out competition.
Yes.
In that way. Take the rest of it out of it.
But there must be also like a lot of people that go in with like Lucky Charms and things like that and like, or a bit of OCD where they touch the net 3 times. I'm making this up.
No,
things like that.
You're spot on. And again, it goes back to my original point of you being in this little silo about how you're going to be as good as you can be and what works for you and how, sometimes you would find something that week that was, it was a comfort of that week of the tournament that you're at or the city that you're in or the people that you met or maybe you were staying with. All of those things are rituals that come into play.
Yes.
I had one for me at Wimbledon. I would always walk to the courts because we used to stay nearby. You stay in Wimbledon Village.
Yeah.
And it would be a 10, 12-minute walk, 15-minute walk to the court. But it was this real release of like a time to think and get rid of the negatives and think about what might be good today and what might happen and might unfold. And I played my best tennis at Wimbledon because it was a place that I loved and I had huge respect for it. But I had this little process that I couldn't do anywhere else because in all these other cities, you're staying in CBDs or in miles from the courts and it's just not possible. But there, that became my little ritual and my habit. And it was something that worked. What
was the weirdest ritual or habit that you saw from someone else?
Oh, there's plenty because, you've got OCD type guys in the locker room that, put the left shoe on and then the right shoe and, then they jocks go up and down and shorts and sequences and all these sorts of stuff. And, there was one player I won't name who I knew had that type of issue and if you held onto a ball in your pocket just for a little bit longer and flicked it down the other end, all that threw him into chaos because he had to start again. And so he'd be getting ready to serve and you just took him out. Little things like that that happen in sport. You shouldn't, but
that's
they do.
mindset, right? So you know how to kind of like
mindset,
make someone else's mind a little bit more chaotic.
Take
to
it out of your space. This is competition.
Yeah.
We're probably trying to help people here, but we're not.
No, but that's interesting though.
It's all about what happens here and how you grow and learn to cope with those things too.
Yeah.
And that's the life of a sports person in general, not just a tennis player, but in sport. Young people in sport who are successful or on that fringe of elite and elite go through so much more than the general person understands. They're living a life in their late teens or early 20s that most people are dealing with the issues in their 40s. So they don't have the maturity and there's an expectation for them to be perfect, to understand that they are role models and that they're supposed to do this and that. all of those things are taught to you. They all come from your parenting and from the people around you, but you are in a massive learning mode. It's your university time, yet you're expected to be a lecturer and a professor in your space, and that's not reality when you live it. You don't get to that until you're older, and so we put an enormous amount, whether it's AFL or NRL players, tennis players, they all learn at different rates. And then I think then when you, again, work in commentary, you have to be able to help express that to the audience out there who have a flat-out view of an individual and where they're at when you only see them on a playing field.
You know how after a match, it's different now because I talk to a lot of them on the actual court, but, you know, they might go and they have like a press conference and stuff like that. I mean, that must be hard, especially if you've lost or you're in a bad mood and then you've got a million people coming at you. You know, we saw the other day, I think it was actually quite beautiful. There was an Australian guy, it went viral, this video, and I think he's playing football or something in America. I'm not quite sure of the sport, but it's like elite and the kid's done well. And I think he's just like 17 or 18. And they said, do you miss your family back in Australia? He started crying and he couldn't stop crying and he was choking on his words and basically saying, I miss them so much and my brothers. And it went viral because people were like, wow, this kid, you know, he's so vulnerable and you see the real, you know, the real homesickness and all that. And we forget about that. We expect them, like, so as your point, like that to perform.
I would applaud him for both.
Yeah.
Firstly, if you do want to succeed, you have to take yourself into a place like that because you have to learn resilience.
Yeah.
And that's what he's done. But then through the hardcore resilience, there is an emotion underneath. I had that as a kid. I left home at 13, turning 14, boarded for a year on the other side of Sydney, hated it. I'd come home weekends and the drive back on a Sunday, I lived in Cronulla, and I'd go to Normanhurst Boys High. The drive back was brutal. It just was awful. And Mum and Dad would drive me back. It was an hour and a half drive, and I just sat in the back going, what am I doing? But I wanted to be a player. Then I went to the Australian Institute of Sport. I left home at 14, turning 15.
Wow.
Done. Gone. Never went back. And again, you go, I'm doing it because I know my parents couldn't afford to give me the other opportunity to keep me in it. And I had to hang on to the group of peers that I was with because if you get behind, you can't catch up. So I knew that, but also I didn't like it. And you'd go to Europe, early trips to Europe as a 15-year-old. You'll have one phone call a week. You ring up, reverse charges. Do you accept the call? And they say accept. Then you could talk. And you're paying, $100 or something ridiculous for 10 minutes back in the day. And that was it. And you had to write. But you just learnt about yourself and how to go about it. Moving forward, now I have two kids now in their 20s, but when they were in those younger years, I talked to them a lot about there were school camps. My kids hated school camps. They absolutely hated it. Going off for a week with all these people with just nothing. I said, if you want to go for it. But if you are not ready, we're not sending you. I don't care what the school says. We're at an elite school. They were lucky enough to go pro. I said, no way, I'm not sending you. I'll tell them straight out, this is why. And gave them not an out, gave them an option for them when they were ready. And, my son, Bo's just turned 22, and he struggled with that, getting in and out of home. He's an elite music theatre performer, played Evan in Dear Evan Hansen here in Australia.
Wow.
Went to the Royal Academy of Music for a year and left home. He was ready to go and has thrived by that opportunity. So he was 19, turning 20 when he left. Came back here, played a lead role, and has now moved back to London. But his growth was when he was ready to do it, not, he had to build his resilience, and he got it. But I still like what you're saying. If you know you've got to go, like I did, you got to do it.
Yeah.
And you have to then lean on the other people to get you through.
It must have been hard, though. I did a year of boarding. I didn't have a choice. It was kind of the school that I had joined since I was young, like it had changed. Like when I joined up, it didn't have this year away. And so that came. So it's not like my parents signed me up knowing that was going to be there.
Your timber
and
top
so,
type year.
Exactly. And so I hated it. And I was just homesick, really. And I was quite traumatized by it.
Well, that's my point, right?
You know?
That's exactly the point I make to you, is that for some kids that are ready, it's
the best.
It's a life changer, but it's not for every kid. And when institutions bind you to those things, I just don't think it works. I think it does more damage. I think the option is the thing to have. I agree. Even if you try it.
Yeah.
And you don't like it, but you build and you might get to like it, but don't lock it down.
Yes,
that's the
we've got no other choice.
It does way more damage. And I think when I see and hear parents going, no, they need to do it, they need to get tough, I'm going, you're not understanding your own child. It's like you're punishing them because maybe you were.
Yeah.
That's how I view it.
Yeah. I wonder, though, for you, because that's so hard when you're young and you get that one phone call. Were you close with your parents?
Very much.
Well, you must have been quite homesick.
Oh, very much. Yeah, and that's where you learn other skills where you had to lean on your mates around you. Yeah. So we travelled in a group.
But are they all your age?
Yeah, they're all our age. Yeah. We were the same. So we kind of all wanted to be great tennis players. Jason Stoltenberg, Richard Fromberg.
Oh, yeah.
They were my era of the Aussies, all played Davis Cup for Australia, all had very good careers. And we, none of us won a major, but Jason was semis of Wimbledon. I was semis of Wimbledon. Richard was top 20. You look at back and you go, well, we dragged each other along in that space, and that was really important and also difficult when you're all different personalities.
Well, was it hard also being so young? I know back then it was a bit different, but now, as a mother, thinking my child is going to go over to this place, he's only 13, 14, and he's in the hands of adults that, I don't know these people that well. I'm sure that must have been a bit funny for your parents.
Yeah, it was. I mean, different times.
Yeah.
And I...
Were they nice, the people that...
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
that's lucky for you.
Yeah, well, one ended up being my coach for 14 years and became more like my father figure. I still lean on him today for discussions and know both his kids and now help his kids in these spaces. His daughter is an LPGA pro golfer. My daughter just caddied for her at the British Open. So that those ties bind and link and grow, but what you're saying, yes, you have to sometimes take those risks even as parents and trust that what your kids are doing, and just I think put parameters in place is what I've tried to do with our own parenting, so that they get the experiences, but just got to watch and listen. And I've done a lot of that because part of my transition into the other parts of my career has been mentoring players, and I ran men's and women's tennis for 3 years at the elite level. So I had all of those things in my portfolio, kids that were 14, 15, starting to do well. So Ash Barty was winning junior Wimbledon at that point. And then my job was, and our team's job was to get her surrounded by the people that are going to give her the best chance to do what she did.
Yeah.
Even to the top of the game at that point was like Sam Stosur, who was winning majors and winning the US Open and the like. So, again, going into that role was capturing all experiences and then offering it up to the generation behind.
So when did you see your family?
When I was younger?
Yeah. Would you just come home at Christmas or something?
Yeah, you would end up away. Well, think of it like this. In the end, as a pro, you average 38 years a week on the road.
Wow.
That's average. And then sometimes you're more and you might be in another place, have a holiday and a break somewhere else. But they were tournament weeks. So home visiting my parents was generally around Christmas time.
Yeah.
Maybe once for a couple of weeks after Wimbledon, and then you'd go again and you'd come back for Christmas. So you'd leave in February and you'd have a short break. But in the end, you have to make the decision what you're going to do. And then I moved to Orlando at 20, and set up base in America. And by that time, I was traveling with my now wife. We were engaged, nearly engaged at that point.
Wow. And so, so basically you weren't at home much, but
No.
there's 3 of you. So there was yourself and your 2 brothers. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And your mother and dad. And your 2 brothers, both of them have passed away.
Yeah. So I was the golden child, like I call it, because I was born.
You
It
weren't
was
there.
a mistake. I was the mistake. I was born 11 and 13 years. After my 2 brothers. Greg was older, and then Warren. And so I came along and was like, whoa. And I don't remember a lot about my older brother Greg being at home because he married pretty young and had moved out. And my other brother Warren was at home until I bought a place and he lived in that. Got him out of the he was my tenant, if you like, because he used to look after the place that I never used.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and so growing up in that environment, this is 70s Australia, was just completely different. My hardworking parents. Dad was a police officer, Mum was a hairdresser, doing the best that they could. Loved sport. My dad was a rugby league junior coach. He loved rugby, and Mum was a tennis player. And so she played tennis 3 times a week, basically, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday afternoons. And so my life revolved around sport, being at it and taken along with no choice. Those were the days at my tennis club in New South Wales as a licensed club. You couldn't go in it because it was licensed and poker machines. And I would sit outside waiting while they all had beers. And then you drove then to a restaurant every Saturday night. And in the days when they shouldn't have been driving, all that sort of stuff.
We got away with so much stuff.
And so, that's how I became a tennis player because I just had to hang around the tennis courts for so long. Mum played.
Yeah, out of sheer boredom.
I was good at it. I was good at it even from a little kid, and I became infatuated by it, in fact. And life grew from that. But then, a lot changes.
Yeah. And your brother got involved in drugs. He was a heroin addict. And did he eventually die of a drug overdose?
No, he didn't. So he and his wife, as I said, he was married late teens, early 20s. They were addicted from school. Oh. So it was the evolution of where it started from smoking into hardcore. And it was a really difficult period. Not so much for me at the time, but because I was 8, 9, 10. You know stuff's going on, but you don't absorb all the really hardcore stuff. But my mum and dad are trying to save him and his wife, who's the same. And really, what do you do when you're a parent in that situation? You give up everything. We would come home and there'd be a break-in. Well, it wasn't really a break-in, but it was made to look like a break-in, and things would be gone. I lost my bike. I lost trophies that I'd already won, little ones worth nothing really. My mum lost her mother's engagement ring. ATMs in those days, the security was different, emptied the ATM. All silverware that you never use in the cupboard, you go to get it, gone in the hock shop. And so Dad was forever trying to buy things back from the house to put back into the house while he was stealing to get money to continue that on. So eventually it just becomes to a point where they had to go, I'm sorry, you're out. We can't look after you anymore or help you. And the curtain or the barrier comes down, you're out there. And then you'd watch and we would know where he was or try to find out. And remember, at this point, my dad's a copper.
Yeah.
So he's very torn. Get him into rehab, moves to Adelaide, ends up working in the rehab, but selling at the same time. And it's just this horrible thing that was going on. And I knew all about it. By that time, I'm talking about Adelaide, I was 12, 13, so I was old enough to recognise what was happening. And so I was a young kid watching this going, I've got to get out. I've got to make something of myself. I can see the damage, even though you're not totally aware. And I had this vehicle in tennis and a skill to go, I can go places. So I was lucky enough at 12 to get picked in a national team to travel to the United States, see somewhere, do something. So in essence, you're getting a free trip based on your talent, but you've got goals. I had goals. And watching what was happening at home was just this real driver that I look at today going, I know that that's why I was like I was. But the harder part was then it made it more difficult for my second brother, Warren, who was only 2 years younger, because he became a pawn in my brother's issues because he knew stuff, was threatened not to tell. All that was happening in family, and it does in so many families, right? And so I was lucky that I was able to find an escape to get out of, that or being in the same cycle, you would call it.
And so how did he pass away in the end? So
he passed away throughout the addictions and needles and used needles and living in King's Cross and the like. He caught everything from Hep A, Hep B, you name it, with the exception of AIDS. Because that can also be spread through infected needles. And that in his internal organs ruined everything, liver, kidneys, and so on. So he was in New South Wales. I think there's still a dossier probably about 5 inches thick of how many things he went through. Trial drugs were all used on him to be able to see what they would do for liver and so forth. And he ended up passing away from his internal organs giving out. By the time he got off, he passed away, he was off everything. He was fine. He had been on methadone for many years, and that was how he got off. And if you and I took a dose of what he took, we'd be dead at that point of methadone. And so eventually he got off that. He lived in a caravan park in Miranda in Sydney, not far from where we had grown up. And at one point, I went to him because I'd retired and I was starting to work in media, and the struggle my parents had, I was kind of very proud of them because they lived in an era where no one would talk about it. It was all pushed under the rug, and you couldn't. There was embarrassment, a stigma.
Of course.
But they were really good. In the end, they just went, no, we need to just talk about it. People need to know. It's better for us. And they started to understand in an era where no one would do it, that it helped them. So by that point, I went to my brother and said, I would like to do a story with you on it. I want to show how important this is because, he would not talk to people about who I was until I retired, that we were brothers, because he didn't want them coming at me for money. So you have all of this going on. It never bothered me, but it bothered him. And I was working with Channel 7 at that point, and their Sunday program, which I think was called the Sunday program, I can't remember exactly, their version of 60 Minutes. They said yes. So I approached him to do it, and he said, I just can't. I can't, because I still think there are people out there that want me. And so that was fascinating. And so he ended up struggling in all sorts of life, but understanding he was healthier and a bit bitter that he'd let his life get to that, because he was a really nice person, but just never got anything out of his life. So it was very challenging. Addiction
is such a complicated thing.
Yes.
I've seen so many families, good families, go through it, and they all have a similar story.
Yeah. And the whole thing was that, and for me, was to let people know that story, because they look at me and go, oh, you've had a charmed life. I have. But the reason it's charmed is because I've used those things to make myself try to give myself opportunity to be better and understand and have sympathy and empathy for all of it, but also to be able to transfer it into my own success and use it as a motivation.
How did your other brother pass away so young?
So my other brother, Warren, again, 70s family, everybody just doing their bit. He was in a trade. He was a panel beater as a young trade. And in those days, no rules around masks and sanding. And he ended up getting a fibrosis dot on the lung from working in a space where you're inhaling all sorts of stuff. And he, unfortunately, touch wood for us, cancer's been not a relevant thing in our genetic pool, but he ended up with a bad shoulder. It ended up being some bone cancer, which was unusual and strange. Had treatment on that very quickly, radiation on that. Then they wanted to do chemo. When he did chemo, he lasted 10 days because it shuts down all the system, and the fibrosis went up and through and took him. And that was very, very hard to handle. Yeah. He had 3 kids, his wife, Sharon, and it was taken really fast. It's one of those things that comes along and you go, whoa. So they're both 58. So I have a life goal of getting past 58. Shouldn't laugh, but you got to have I'm 54, so I'm still in good shape, I think. So hopefully,
but it wasn't long ago that didn't you have a heart attack?
Yeah, I did. 51
when you were working out.
Yeah, 51.
Jeez, and was that severe?
Yeah, no, it wasn't severe, but it was enough to know what was going on. Yeah, and that was at a point when post-COVID, white males between 48, 55 were all having heart issues, whether that be from COVID itself, we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, mine felt like from COVID itself. I, for a long time, had some chest issues of shortness of breath and things like that from when I got it. I don't have that now. Back feel free and easy. Had all my checks, which was the key thing too. It was actually a wake-up call to every man that was 50. Yeah, got to look after yourself. You've got to know what's going on inside, no matter how you feel.
How could you tell?
How could I tell I was having it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I had it. If you push a thumb in your chest, I could feel that. And go, oh, that's a bit strange. You try to shake it off, and then it grew across.
Yeah.
So it became like a fist. And then you're sweating and you're going white and you're going, oh, I'm not good here.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes.
You knew.
Yeah.
It wasn't normal. Nothing like I'd ever had in my life.
Wow.
But fortunately enough to be able to just get down the hospital really quick, bang on it. I didn't wait for an ambulance, just to get in the car and take me. And I by the time I got there, I was feeling a bit better, but you don't know.
Yeah,
and
of course.
I think I only had about 20% blockages of my arteries, which is quite good at my age.
So do they operate straight away? What they do?
No, there's nothing to operate on.
Okay.
They go in, they look, and if they needed to, they would have. But at this point, no. Now you're just cholesterol and blood pressure and all those.
So no medication or anything? Beta blockers
blood pressure.
Or something?
No, blood pressure for me.
Yeah.
So that was elevated.
Yeah.
Which is also can cause those things. So again, I didn't know I had high blood pressure.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't had any symptoms before,
how
are you
but
to
you
know?
still got to go just check. Got to make the doctors check.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had my own, moment. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Your poor parents. I just,
No, Mum and Dad.
they've been through a bit.
Yeah, they did go through a lot.
Seriously,
and,
how are they?
Well, no, they're gone too. I say that. No, it's only me left, and that's the weird part for me. I'm the only one left of the Woodbridges. There was 5 of us, and that's unusual. But Mum and Dad, both lived to good ages. It's
unusual because you're
80s.
young still.
Yeah, they're in the 80s.
Yeah.
Dad died a little 82. My mum was 87, nearly 88.
Okay.
Just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But again, you learn so many things. Like Mum ended up with mild dementia, and I had many people out there are dealing with that, and I had to make that decision of I wanted my parents to have a good end of their life, so I had done well enough to help them move out of Sydney and go up north to Tuncurry, Foster Tuncurry, beautiful seaside part of Australia and of New South Wales coastline. And they lived their last 25 years there, went to the bowls club, created new people, Dad painted,
so nice.
But they still had all of the luggage and the baggage. But, in the end, when after Dad passed, we left Mum there, living by herself, and dementia kicks in and not really taking care, and you've got to be on top of that. And I'm traveling the world. I was the only one left there for a while, and relied on a lot of amazing people in healthcare to look after in a small community that were incredible. So, I thank them all up there for being able to do that. And then, eventually it did its thing, what dementia does. And it's been challenging a few years for me because you get to an age where it does happen, but you also feel like your maturity and things change in how you see.
Of
like
course.
I'm a lot more appeasing than I was when I was in my 20s.
Yeah. I wonder now, going back to tennis, I wonder when people know you obviously for your tennis, but as the Woodies, Mark Woodford and Todd Woodbridge. When did you meet Mark?
Well, he's 5-6 years older than me.
Yeah.
So we were coming along, the group I mentioned of Stoltenberg and Fromberg and these group of young Aussie kids, and he was already doing quite well on tour. He'd won a US Open championship with John McEnroe. And so he was the group of Aussie players that were set on tour, and we were chasing them. You know, we were trying to join them.
Yeah.
So I had got to meet and then play against him, and then got an opportunity to say, hey, would you like to try to play? John McEnroe likes to take credit that he was the one that set us up. It's not quite that, but it sounds good. And we started to play. So I was sort of 19, 20. He was about 25, 26, and off we went. And, 10 years we played with each other.
10 years?
10 years together.
And you did so well.
10 years. From the first tournament we won on average every fourth tournament over our career, 60-odd titles together, our majors, 11 of those. So, yeah, it was an incredible run, and it set up a career for both of us, because it was a specialty that, you made your household name in Australia at least, and any tennis community around the world also knew who we were, obviously.
As far as doubles goes, are you some of the best pair of doubles that has ever,
I think
been
so.
together?
I think we rate in, the top 3 in the world.
Wow.
Maybe 4. I mean, Aussies have had some brilliant ones. If
Really?
you go back in time,
Yeah.
Frank Sedgman and Ken McGregor, and you've got Newcomb and Roach, and then you've got us being Mark and I, the Woodies, but then you go McEnroe and Fleming. You've got the Bryan brothers, who've just been inducted into National Tennis Hall of Fame, that came after us. They're the key pairs in the history of tennis over nearly the last 80 years. So
obviously, like in any relationship, you have to make sure you're working together well.
Yeah.
How was that? Like, how was playing together? Who was your coach?
Our coach was is a fellow by the name of Ray Ruffles. So he's who I spoke about. We still keep in touch with Ray. But working with Mark became an understanding of like a work colleague who we both had the same goal, both knew what we wanted to do, both had great work ethic, both brought different strengths to the partnership, both had leadership skills, and both had the ability to let the other lead at the right moment, which I think was really important for us. Both had slightly different temperaments. And then I think we both knew that at the right time we needed to get away from each other. So I know early on, Mark still lives in Palm Springs, Mission Hills in California.
Oh, okay.
And when I was moving to States, he says, why don't you come here, you can practice, and go, I'm not sure that we need that 24/7, 365 days of the year. And so I moved to Florida, the other side, couldn't be further apart. But that was to give separation so that you could get off and do your own thing and keep that. So when he came back into the competitive zone, you're fresh and ready to go and looking forward to catching up and doing the same thing. So well planned, also well executed. Nothing. I've like the saying, nothing ever happens by accident, and our success was no accident.
Because it would be interesting, like you would get to know the person so well, like you'd know when they were going to move a certain way, or you would.
Oh, you'd know what shot was coming. Yeah, and for us, the instinct that we had was there was a natural instinct in the art of doubles.
Yeah.
But then we throw in the actual. I could tell where his racket was, where that ball was going, and I could lead and move in that. So you gelled as one. Like you could flow and communicate. And I think the biggest strength that we had as a combination was that when we weren't playing so well or we were a bit off, we still found a way to win, which was the key to our success. Because early in tournaments, you don't always play your best. You're just getting through. We played our best in semis and finals. That's when we hit our straps, which is amazing thing to happen. But often you don't get there. I went on to play with Jonas Bjorkman of Sweden after that and had a lot of success, but not the consistency that I had with Mark. We lost matches we should have won or could have won. That never happened with Mark and I. We'd always find a way to get through, to give ourselves the chance in the bigger parts of tournaments, which is upon reflection, really, I look back at that as probably one of the best things of the partnership.
What was the biggest moment for the two of you that you remember?
Gee, we had a lot. We were lucky. Probably, I always say this too. I think it's unfair to just have one when you had that much, because there's different things mean different. Different results mean different things. So winning a first Wimbledon, 1993, was, in my mind, to be able to say in tennis that you're a Wimbledon champion in any event is extraordinary. That means you've hit the pinnacle of it all. So that was once, that was 93, the first time. We won 5 in a row from there, which was a pretty good run. But then also winning gold medal at the Olympics. That is completely different, because that was in Atlanta in 96, and we lost in the final for a silver in 2000, our very last tournament. But in 96, there was this whole feeling of an expectation that we were going to win gold. That already put it on the medal tally, and you can't imagine the pressure of that. I think of Kathy Freeman in 2000 when she was a favourite and everything else she did, and how to get that all out of your head and just go out and do what you need to do. And so that win there for me was so important that we were able to do that. But then also, there's a lot of people that don't follow tennis, but when the Olympics is on, they get caught up in the rush. And we became an absolute household name in those back end of the 90s because of that. And, that was massive. It still holds an incredible value, not monetary value, the Olympic medal, but anywhere you take it, that's what people want to see. And
Really?
I've done this great little trip with kids for our Hot Shots program with Tennis Australia, where I walk in, we made a little video, and I go into the hall, and I had a Davis Cup trophy, Olympic medal, and a Wimbledon trophy. And I bring them out, and I then bring the school captains, the sports captains up, and say, I want you to think about what you might be doing in the Olympics, and I'm going to make you an Olympic gold medalist. And you put it on, and those kids erupt, as does everyone out there. And so to be able to give that, I reckon that's incredible. And the medals don't look as flash as they used to, because they're used. They're actually used for a good cause.
Yeah.
So that gives me goosebumps.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's great.
Why did you decide to retire from the doubles partnership?
It's interesting you asked that, because now tennis players are playing longer. I retired at 34.
Yeah.
But I had been on the road since I was 16. I had 2 kids, 2 and 4. I had this theory that if I was away more than 2 weeks, they had to join me, or I had to go home, and it was becoming harder. I also had achieved everything I thought I could. My singles had gone. I'd let that go. And I didn't want to go into mediocrity of just making quarterfinal, semi-final. That's what I call mediocrity. At the time I look back now, it's not that bad. But I also felt that we brought our kids back to Australia. We wanted them to be schooled here, and we needed the support of family around us to, like anyone does, because living in the States, we had nobody. So we'd built a house there and everything, but we upped everything, put it in containers, moved back home. And then that was a point for me where it was like, okay, what do I do? What am I going to do for, call it career take 2? And that wasn't easy, but I had set myself up in a way the last few years of playing that media was an option for me. Commentary was what I did like, I was ready to do. And I knew if I came back to Australia, I would get that chance, at least for the Australian Open, and see what would happen from there.
Did Mark want to retire as well? Was it a mutual
conversation? Well, he retired 4.5 years earlier than me. So he retired at 34 also.
Yes. So
I played 5 more seasons. There was this thing that 34 you were done.
Yeah.
That was it. You couldn't go much. You're too tired. Well, Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, they've all shown that that's not true. But there does come a point when you don't feel like you can improve anymore. You've got nothing left to give, and he was at that point too. That was. I think if Mark had kept playing, we would have kept winning. Yeah, both of us. But
was it hard when he said that I want to retire now for you? Because you were that bit younger.
Yeah, well, I had to decide what to do.
Yeah,
at that point, I wasn't going to change his mind.
Yeah.
So I then had the option. I was number 1 in the world, and I had the option of choosing whoever you wanted to play with, which was pretty cool. And I went basically to all the key players that I thought would work well, because, I mean, like in business, you don't hire someone like you hire someone that can do what you can't, and you do that when you're playing in a doubles partnership so that you blend well. And that was when I went and chose Jonas Bjorkman as a partner, because I hated playing against him. He annoyed me. So I thought I might as well have him on my side of the court.
But is he got Australian citizenship?
Who's that?
Jonas Bjorkman?
No, he's Swedish.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, so you can play with whoever you like
Yes.
in tennis. You don't have to play with an Aussie. It's better if you do. It works nicely.
Yeah.
And that set us up back here. But no, you can choose whatever you
want.
like. Yeah.
And are you still friends with Mark now?
We don't see each other a lot. We're not as close as we once were. Part of that's got to do with how far away you are, and Mark hasn't come back to Australia all that often.
Yeah.
And one of the key things is I also... I felt like the Woodies, we had done what we did, and that was brilliant, but that wasn't another career of the Woodies. And then I knew I had to recreate something else back here. So that's been more difficult, I think, as the partnership we were one, and then I've gone off in different tangents. So we still see each other a couple of times a year, usually at Wimbledon and usually here, but it's 20 years since it's 25 years since we played. It's a long time, and there's a lot, and life takes you in different channels. And I think that as you get older, you now understand that throughout that journey, there are people and places in your life that have been so important, and then you then move to different ones, and you can't hang on them. You can't go and say, well, it was better back then. You got to keep looking forward to what you can do next, and that's kind of been my philosophy, even with that partnership and our relationship, is that it set us up. We never will not be the Woodies together, but it's not as it was back then, because it can't be, because you've got to move forward.
Yeah, but you don't talk on the phone or anything.
We don't. We talk when we see each other.
Yeah,
but we don't get on the phone much. No.
Yeah.
No.
How come he didn't go into media?
Well, he did. He is in a way. He's now tangented off into, he's the chair of the Davis Cup competition for the International Tennis Federation.
Yeah.
So he works in similar but different spaces.
Different, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
And I wonder for you, after that retirement, was there that feeling of like, oh gosh, like, okay, there is that step into media, but I feel like my identity has changed? With a lot of sports people go through that. Yes.
I don't think it's about identity. It's about security, and it's about feeling the adrenaline. The thing that you get as an athlete is this kick of adrenaline so often, and then it drops, and you've got to learn how to deal with that, because generally the adrenaline drops with a bad result or something you haven't achieved what you wanted. But you have this roller coaster of emotions. When you retire, you don't get the adrenaline kick anymore, so you're sitting flat. And many athletes struggle with depression, self-belief, self-worth. Where do I go now? Because so much has been given to one thing. Generally, their academia is not part of what you do to get the physical rewards. So they haven't had the education that they need. They then got to make a decision, do I go back with hardly any money and start studying for new career paths? And how do you help yourself in those spaces? And my advice to anybody in that is to keep working on what you might be wanting to do while you're being successful, not waiting for it to end and then going, oh, what now? And that was my thing. I
was thinking that when you were telling me about how you left so young to go. I thought, when did you do school?
Well, we did
on the road.
Yeah, well, we did school on the road.
Yeah, like actors do. I suppose,
but in those days, of course, we didn't have internet, right?
Yeah.
So you would get sent papers and have to pick it up at Roland Garros and then do your work and send it back. But when you
have like a teacher with you or anything?
No. Oh. But when you lost interest, they just got lost in the mail. So it didn't quite work. And I've told this story before. I love it though, because I've got a report card, and it's handwritten from, I think it was year 11 at that point. And I was doing geography, and it was a term, and it said absent 60 days, present 6. And in the remarks it said, been watching your results, Todd, keep up the good work.
Aww.
Steve, who was the teacher. And that's what it was like.
Yeah.
I mean, but I feel like I was smart enough to understand I was learning a lot and taking in the world. I understood that. A lot of sports and kids don't do that. Even now, there's kids I know traveling the world and they don't know what city they're in. They don't know anything about it. I was one of those that really did like that.
Yeah.
But just to go back to that moment of becoming an athlete, finishing career and starting a new one. I spent time as the ATP player president. I was on those political boards of our sport. I would do guest commentary whenever I could. I learnt the ins and outs about media. And so by the time I was ready to start, I had options. Now, you start at the bottom, but you have options. You have doors open. And I really big on, no matter who you are, building relationships that give you an opportunity to open a door to advance you. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, and it's no shoo-in that you will succeed, but you can't wait either. You have to be proactive in your learning and in I call it working the room. That's what I call it.
Yeah,
I always talk to my kids about, let's go work the room. Let's go meet these people, find out what they do. You don't know who might be able to give you an opportunity, might be seeking, somebody in your business, in a job. So important. They're the things that I actually talk about to our young tennis players now a lot, because understanding who they are, what their brand is, where they want to go, possibly how good they'll be, so that they're, not everyone's going to be top 10 and that. And so you also have to be realistic in those moments with people. You don't say they don't have a chance, because that's wrong too.
Yes.
But you also are giving them a broader sense of not just number one in the world. And that, for me, was really key, by the way. I worked out my game was never going to be big enough to get to that point. So how good could I be with what I had? And I don't think I left much out there. I would have loved more.
It's interesting because you talked about your parents, and they sound like really beautiful, like kind
normal
people who, were very helpful to you and very proud of you. But obviously not everyone, and we see it a lot in tennis, has parents like that. Jelena Dokic is one who's a very close friend of yours. I think it was Steffi Graf, Monica Seles. There were so many.
Well, Steffi's dad. Monica's dad was pretty good.
Was he?
Steffi had issues with her dad.
Yeah. So I feel like there's so many who have issues with their parents. A lot of the time it's the father. And I wonder how it was for you growing up in an era where that was quite prevalent.
Well, it became prevalent after me. We didn't have it as much in my era. It started to happen, and
it's interesting.
And it happened more with female players, obviously. And it became a stigma because a lot of parents saw it as a way for an income. Yeah, they didn't work. They could force their kid into becoming the best that they could, and so often it wasn't the young athlete's choice or journey. It was their parents' journey. And so you have to, as a parent, if you've got a skilled child, you have to make it theirs. Even when then they might be losing their way, you can't be forceful. You must be supportive, and you must put things in place that get them back on track. But telling them and forcing them takes them away from how brilliant they can be and what their love of what they're doing is. One thing I admire with Jelena is that she has a love of tennis. So she had that even though her dad was what he was. She saw that as her outlet too, like I spoke about. She knew she had a special thing and wanted it, but it was the way that it was thrown in and around her that became horrendous. And so, I mean, there might be there'll be parents out there that have the same philosophy as Demir had, and that's, I can get the money and I can do something, set me up, and horrendous. Fortunately, in tennis, the tours have things in place to try to stop that now.
What do they have?
The WTA has ways that they can talk to the young women and what's the right word? Educate them on what's going on and how it's going on. And if you need help, we have all of these mechanisms. They can do it diligently, slowly and silently to not feel in a case like Elena. You have people that are talking up about those things now, so it's much more out there.
Yeah.
And so if you're in trouble in that space, you can seek support. Tennis Australia has the same thing where you can call in and anonymously if needed. Or if you see things as some other parent might, you can anonymously say, I've seen this needs to be looked at. There are those things in place. So that's something that I'm really glad to see. But at the same time, I also know as a parent, if you've got a kid that's good at something, you want them to do well because it's a gift. Don't waste it. But it's how you go about supporting it.
It's interesting with sport as well, because I think a lot of parents, when they see their kid do well, that's like exciting, and some live vicariously through their kids in maybe a sport.
Oh, we all do.
They never,
I'm a proud parent.
Never achieve so much in, but they see their child doing that. But the berating of a child if they don't do well is never going to end well.
No, it's an interesting topic in itself because my dad, I got in trouble a few times because I behaved badly.
What did you do?
I'd lost, threw my racket, banged my racket, got cranky, yelled and screamed. I was young. I was 9 years old. My dad walked on the court, grabbed me by the ear and pulled me off, said, you're not playing again if you carry on like that. Different type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Can't do that now.
Yeah.
Oh, but I remember it. And he didn't damage me.
No, but he was actually trying to give you
discipline.
Good manners. Yeah.
It was discipline. And there's that fine line between discipline and what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
But now it's a scary thing for a parent to be able to discipline sometimes and how you go about it. And I guess we've got to educate ourselves to be able to do that well. But, my dad was very much like, you do that, you don't play. So it was the opposite. It wasn't like it was the right discipline.
Yeah, he's teaching you manners.
And then he was, I'm like, no, got to play.
Yeah.
So you try and pull yourself together. But I remember that vividly. I know I can see the court. I can see the day where he's waltzed on.
Because it made such an impact on you, though.
Flung open.
That's why you can.
And taking me off the court. Match over. Sorry, you win.
That's so wow.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I still had a temper, but that was fire inside.
And I wonder for you now, you are trying new things. You are a host of a TV show, but nothing sport related. Is that strange for you going into more entertainment?
Hasn't been. So the joy of what I've been able to do in the last 7-8 years in particular, maybe it's 10 now, was going into media. I just didn't want to be a tennis commentator. I have opinions and I have views and I have experience and I like to talk. And so all of those things work well in that space. I know what it's like to win an Olympic gold medal and I know what it's like to fail. And those are the key things about being in broadcast, but also being a mentor to talk to people. So coming into that space, I got the opportunity back in the day with Channel 7 to do an Olympics hosting, not the prime time.
Yeah.
I did 2 a.m. to 9 a.m.
That must have been fun.
Yeah, no, it was, but, it was still great.
Yes.
There's still nerves. And again, for me, that's like an adrenaline rush. I did a Commonwealth Games as a host. Then I get the opportunity that tennis moves to Channel 9. And they saw by then a different maturity in me, somebody on camera that could do more, a bit more natural, a bit more relaxed. I'd grown into that, by the way. And then they choose me to do the Ashes as the host. Now, I'm walking into a job there that Richie Benaud owned, right? And the Chappells and all of those famous cricketers that became great broadcasters.
Do you know much about cricket?
I know like every other Aussie, right? But I don't, this is the whole thing. In broadcast, I didn't need to know everything about it. I needed to know how to say hello and welcome. Here's what's coming up today. Mark Taylor, tell us what's going to happen.
Yes.
And then understand all the questions that need to be asked to get the experts to deliver that. And that went really well. I did 5 tests out of the studio in Melbourne when the Ashes was being played in the UK. Such a great experience. And then that opened up more doors to be able to go into other places. And you've got to be willing to have a crack at things. Postcards here in Victoria is another local show. COVID came along. I'm meant to be going up to Sydney each week to do Sports Sunday. Can't travel, not allowed. Could still do some little pieces here. So I go into presenting in a different way altogether. And they go, oh, you're quite good. I say, yeah, what's easy? I'll just have a chat with someone and we talk about the food, love food. Off you go. And then that then has gone into Tipping Point.
How good is that?
So it's a game show host. Now, I've been an interviewer. I get interviewed. I've done it since I was the age of 12. I was on Simon Townsend's Wonderworld. Then you go through being in front of the camera, and now I'm with people. I like people. And you can tell in my story that when you got hardcore drugs and stuff around, and you've got all sorts of life. You know, I know the good, the bad, the ugly. So I've gone from streets and rough to meeting royalty. And that just comes out in a show like that. So you read questions. I've travelled the world. I've got experiences to be able to talk about and bring the best out in people. And I love it. And it's just worked.
How good is that for you?
And so when it came along, it was funny when it came along and
Yeah.
I said, you know, would you do a screen test for what? A game show? Okay, all right, I'll have a go. I did the screen test and had watched the show to do the screen test. I rang my sport boss and said, I want this. I can do this. And then he rang, phone calls going round in circles.
He's like, I'll put in a word.
Yeah, well, I hope he did.
Yeah.
And off we went, and it has worked.
How amazing for you.
Yeah.
It's really great when you take your abilities, besides from tennis, but the other things that you're good at, and they move you into a direction that you really enjoy. Like my life has been very similar. And you're like, I didn't envisage myself doing this, but this is exactly where I want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, well, again, that comes about, though, from understanding your strengths.
Yeah.
And using them in the right way and keeping things open to have a go. And also knowing, I think for me, the other thing is I learned straight after finishing tennis what I wasn't good at and what I didn't want to do. And so I had the opportunity to go more down the administrative route of tennis leadership.
Yeah.
That was there. That was an option. But the more that I started to do it, the more I just didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And the more I realized actually I would have to go off and really work hard in finance and accounting and things that didn't interest me, numbers I'm no good at. I'm more interested in writing and reading and English and communications. So I had discussions about that. I had an opportunity from my boss at Tennis Australia to go to a short course at Harvard to work on it. I said, it's not for me. It's just, wow, amazing. People going, you didn't go. I would have failed.
Yeah.
Right. So
I've
learned not to put myself into a space you can fail, but also be prepared to fail.
Yeah.
Have a go, but know your strengths and weaknesses and be aware of them. And that for me is, again, experience. I know where not to go.
Yes. And so you became good friends with Yelena through obviously doing all the commentary together.
Well, no, I actually, it was my role as head of men's and women's tennis. My job at this particular point with her was to get her back on court. She wanted to keep playing. But I knew, because I've been there, that was unlikely. She'd get back playing, but she was never going to get where she wanted. And we ended up having these discussions. It was with her and her then partner, Tin, about how are we going to get you back on court? What's it look like? And how old are you now? I'm this age. Well, you just need to start thinking about what other things. Well, there's nothing else. I can only play tennis. I don't think that that's true. I think there are options for you when you're ready to tell your story. Because by this point, I'm be flat out honest, she'd put on a lot of weight. She knew that. And I was going out on court 4 days a week, hitting for 3 hours with her, just hitting balls so she could get back into a physical condition to try to get back. But my God, did she train hard? Did she have the will and determination? But she didn't have an open view of the world. And that was where we would sit down and start talking about, you can commentate. Because I'm with this girl on court who's soaking up information and asking more and sees it all. Then you just got to learn to articulate that, and that was how that relationship came about, because she wanted it but didn't see it, and then started to see it, and then eventually
and you saw it in her, and
and encouraged her. It was there. I could see it. And I also knew the depths of the struggle she was having internally with what was going on with her dad and what had happened in her life, and that the only way for her to get past that was to express it.
You know, it's interesting though, because I think what, without her being here, what probably meant so much to her was that you saw something in her that maybe she kind of knew, but you brought it to the surface. And by you encouraging her,
gave opportunity.
You made the trajectory of her life change. And, when she obviously said the Logie speech, she talked about you so beautifully. How did that make you feel?
Well, I knew that she uses a little bit of that when she does some keynote speaking, because I get messages from people. But I haven't been to the keynote. I've been wanting to, trying to, and getting scheduled hasn't worked. And we'd had discussions about the Logies. Oh, you'll win. And I won't win. No, she goes, I won't win. We neither of us thought we would win one. And so to be in the room then when she gets up and delivers so passionately, we're told you have 30 seconds and she does about 6 minutes. And again, that's one of the things we laugh at, because I'm forever trying to get her to talk less now when we're in commentary and the like. And, but that's a different story, because that was the perfect time to do what she did. And many people in that room have got their own issues, haven't they? You know that, and I knew that. And she just articulated so many great messages. And then the one about me, I didn't expect that night. And I don't think a lot of people know that story super well. Went 2 million people that night, because that's what the ratings were at that time. And I'm really chuffed with her for doing it. I'm really proud. But what made me most proud was to see somebody, and she said it that night, a person that couldn't string 2 sentences together can stand up here and deliver like she did, learn how to speak, to change her accent, to smile when she talked, to bring warmth to it, to bring hardcore. That still gives me tingles, because from where she started to where she's got is so impressive. And I know now, what makes me feel better even again is that how many lives she's changed.
She's changed.
How many women have seen her talk in person and got to meet her and have walked away going, okay, I've a chance. That is empowering for me to have seen that done. And I go back and, I felt like I came out of that as a saint. I'm no saint, and I'm not perfect at any of these things, but I did do at that time, if I can take it back to when we had those early discussions, my role was men's and women's. And I went in with a clean slate with every athlete who maybe they'd had issues, maybe they didn't like me, maybe there was personalities that didn't like Tennis Australia. Let's give it a go. If you mess it up, I don't like people that you give a chance to and then use it the wrong way. I move on. But if you can have a clean slate, give it a really good go. Keep learning, keep getting better. It's so many young players that have had good careers from that period that I worked, and I'm very proud of. And I haven't had as much effect on all of them, but something. There's Matt Ebden and John Peers winning gold medal at Paris Olympics. Both those guys I've had lots of conversations with and helped to just guide pieces of their career path. Now, they've done it. I didn't do it, but they've used your experiences to do it. Sensational. Another guy, Marinko Matosevic, who's got to 35 in the world, from people said, you got no chance with him. And now is a really strong coach in the world of tennis. And there's more. There's little bits of, one of my proudest moments, it was standing in front of all of the world of tennis, introducing Yvonne Goolagong-Cawley to present the trophy for Ash Barty. That was a career moment for me to be standing there as a MC, but also knowing that I'd been a little part of Ash's journey. Now, that's not for an accolade or anything. It's just knowing that you are doing good things in spaces.
It's interesting because I think, you can do good for yourself, but there's nothing that beats the feeling of helping others and seeing them succeed. It's so fulfilling.
So you've triggered something for me right there. just recently I said to someone, oh, it's really good that, it was after the Logies, in fact, they said, oh, you do a lot of helping people. I said, no, I actually want the people that I work with to be really good. I want them to be good because that means I'm good and then we're all good. And the show, the product is so much better than being, I only want myself to succeed. I want to succeed, absolutely. But when I work with someone else, like if someone new comes into our tennis coverage that's like not been around players and doesn't understand, just the little bits of language that are so important, you're going to help them. You don't let them fail. You bring them with you because your coverage is better. And that is something that I just wish people would do more of instead of trying to hold people back and not let them come with you, because you'll be better. You're always going to be you're going to go like this. And that's a really big part of what I do in tennis commentary. And I hope that anyone I work with comes in and feels that I'm with them. Now, I'm about to work Winter Olympics in February, and I'm going to be calling a couple of sports that I have not a lot of idea. I'm watching them diligently, but I'm going to be working with people that I'm going to try to help them get the best from me and vice versa. Because I'll be working with experts that don't do a lot of television, or I can make them better, but they're going to have to help me with those little bits of the nuances. And then we'll sound like we've been doing it for years. So important.
There's this beautiful quote, and I've said it 5,000 times on this podcast, but you may not have heard it, and it just really, encapsulates everything that you have talked about. And there was a kind of, spiritual teacher called Ram Dass who died many years ago, and his famous quote was, we're all here to walk each other home. The idea that home is not here, but the afterlife, but we're here on this journey to help others, which is something that you have done very well. I just want to tell you this story about Yelena. She came on this podcast quite a few years ago. She actually helped me with something that changed my life, and she would never know this. And it wasn't anything that she said that was like, whoa, but it was big for me. I was getting into keynote speaking, so I'm a mindset coach. Yeah. And I had been told by some people that I looked up to that you need to learn your speech off by heart. And I was trying to do that and I just couldn't. And it stopped me from ever doing keynotes for years, right? Because I was like, I'm just not good at this. I can't learn it off by heart. I keep just like getting tired when I'm trying to learn it. It's just not for me. And Yelena came and sat here, and before we started recording, we were talking about her being a big player in the keynote space. And I said, look, Yelena, I'm struggling with this. And she said, Sarah, when you first start, you just type it out. And you go and you do a few and you have notes. She goes, it's not a big deal. No one's going to care. She goes, and then you don't need to learn it off by heart. She goes, no, not at all. She goes, you understand the stories because they're your stories. You get a gist of them and then you just keep telling them and then you get a feel for it. That was life-changing for me. I have been on the keynote circuit for years now. I get people saying to me, how are you so good? And I actually told that story at one of my keynotes when these journalists were like, how did you get to become such a good keynote speaker? I'm like, well, Yelena Dockage, she gave me some advice that changed my life. Yeah. So it's funny how someone can just tell you something about their experience and it's life-changing for you.
Well, probably the next piece of what you've just said is a piece that helped me enormously, which was from my boss who runs communications and production at Tennis Australia. He said to stop trying to be perfect. Now, that didn't mean perfect in life or whatever. It meant in the space you've just talked about. I make a ton of mistakes, not deliberately because I hate them. It annoys me so much. But sit in them and actually use them as a way to lighten things up. And I learned to do that and to go with it and make fun of yourself at that moment. Like a little lightheartedness makes everybody in the room relax.
Absolutely.
And whereas I'm in your space, I would come in and I try to be word perfect and big moments and that didn't work for me.
Yeah.
But what has worked for me was being me. And that is the most important thing that I have taken into a new game show. Yeah. Is I'm not going to be perfect. Yeah. I'm going to say something wrong. I'm going to get an awkward moment. Oh, golly, here we go.
But it's also like you're moving into this not trying to be, one of those well-known game show hosts where all they've done is being a game show host.
Yeah.
You're there as Todd Woodbridge being Todd Woodbridge. And I think that's why people love you.
Yeah.
And you use your skills for that, right?
Yeah, I think so. The other part and there's another sequence of what you've just said too, is you can't be who that other person was. So I can't be Grant Denyer. I love watching Grant. I think he's hilarious, and his energy is what exudes through the screen.
Yeah.
But I can't do Grant. I could try, but it looked like I was trying too hard. A great piece of advice from my executive producer originally at Channel 7. I said, do you think Bruce McEnroe would sit down with me and sort of guide me a little bit? And he goes, I said, here's another one asking the same question. No, he won't. And I sort of like, he said, he would, but he won't. And I'm not going to let him, because you need to be who you are. So watch him, take all the good bits, listen, learn, and put it into you. And that is the key to becoming a Bruce McEnroe. You can't be Bruce. It's innate to him to have the delivery, the timing, the feel, the nuance, those voices. You create yours by using the skills of those around you. And you've got to get comfortable with yourself to be able to do that, though. You've got to work hard.
Of course.
Don't think you don't work hard to do that. And that for me were two really big things that I have been able to take into this back half of my second career.
Oprah tells this great story about when she started out, she would analyze Barbara Walters and she would sit like Barbara. She'd try and do her hair like Barbara. She would talk like Barbara. She would do everything to be Barbara. And then after, a few months on the job, her best friend Gail was like, can you cut it with the Barbara Walters stuff? Just be yourself, right?
It's true. Yeah.
And, Oprah is one of the best interviewers in the world, but she said, I grew into myself when I stopped trying to be Barbara Walters.
Of course.
So, a lot of us, we've all been there, but when we realise it's our authentic self that has taken us to where we are.
Yeah. Experiences take you there too, don't they?
Absolutely.
I haven't touched upon in this discussion with you, but it's important because things flash through your mind. I was 27, 28, just coming off the very best years of my tennis playing career, semi-finals at Wimbledon, and I lost two dear friends. We did. I say we because Tash and I, my wife and I, and one was Renee Appleby. She was the wife of Stuart Appleby, one of the leading golfers. Stuart and I are the same age. The girls were the same age. We'd both living in Orlando. Both had the world at our feet, and she was hit by a taxi
at an airport
at Waterloo Station in London. And died within 10, 12 minutes of a ruptured spleen and internal injuries. And that was just devastating. It was just gone. They were our mates, and we lived and travelled the world, and he was doing great things. And then when that happened, we'd been with them. We'd travelled back to Orlando, literally with them 2 days before. And we get back, and I get the call. I ring Payne Stewart and Tracy Stewart. Payne Stewart was two-time US Open, PGA champion, wore the +4s, and unbelievable player. And Tracy was Australian, so she was an Aussie friend there, and he was 40 at that point, 40, 41. They came over to our house because we were young. This is going to be an issue for you guys. You're going to need to talk about how you're going to get through this. And then he died a year later in a plane crash that travelled across America, decompressed, and eventually just crashed. So two people. He had just won the US Open golf, at height of his game as well, and they're gone. So all of a sudden, here I am going, all right, it's a total reassessment of understanding death, losing people, and how you then go. I was never as intense as I was just before that. I thought more about life and how to get more out of myself and not be so. Up until that point, I had been so hard on myself, so intense, so into failure, what if, depressed when results weren't right, and just so much pressure on myself that I learned how to get rid of that. Never quite got my singles back on track because of it, but I also, I felt such a weight off my shoulders that has allowed me to be I think a a better person.
It's funny how those things end up teaching us in ways we never thought that we would learn.
Never expected it. And, everybody goes through tragedy, and it takes a lot to be able to use it in the right way. And they were my moments. And from that early 20s, that's when, immortality sort of does start to hit you. You think you're going to live forever until about then. And then you have to work out how to get the best out of the rest of your life.
I wonder, what is some of the best advice that you have ever been given?
The best advice? Well, I actually think it's more to be you. We've all got weird quirks. We've all got strange personalities. We all have our things that separate us. But it's understanding who you are to be the better you. I get a bit grumpy and like my own time, but that's because I'm so much out front with people. But I also have this thing about just really about treating people properly, treating people well, treat people how you would like to be treated. I think that's a simple mantra. If you treat someone nicely, they will take it on board as like a compliment, and then they will be willing to give that back. How many people today do you go up to or you're in a public situation and you do something nice and they go, oh, well, it shouldn't be like that. It should be the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And that's where we've got to a little bit as a society. And I think it's so much nicer, and you will feel so much better, and you'll get such a different reaction when you're pleasant to people. I've kind of walked into this space now where I've always been known, but Tipping Point's taken it to another level. And people go, oh, isn't he a nice fellow? And you go, I'd hope so.
I suppose because it's not always what they've seen. Not of you, but as people in general.
Well, actually, particularly of me as a sports person, because, I was a bit temperamental and so intense and so straight down the line. And people are actually seeing me in my more day-to-day than what I was. I was always like that, but not on a court. And Andy Murray's a great example of that as a sportsman for me. Andy Murray, I kind of really love Andy. I don't know him super well, but when you do get a moment or two with him, he's so funny. He's so dry. He's so willing to take the mickey out of himself. And he was the biggest whinger of all time on court. And he knows it, and he sits in it. And I just think for that reason, he's just a champion. He is a champion. Won 2 Wimbledons, 2 Olympic golds, a US Open. It's a crazy career in a time of Federer and Nadal, by the way. But he's clever and witty, and he's not afraid to look at himself and be humble.
I would have thought of John McEnroe like that had he not started commentating. And then I'm like, he seems like a really good guy. But I remember him as being the real kind of
he's
grump.
different. Well, he's a different guy. If you haven't watched his documentary that he was involved in making, do so, because you learn a lot about him.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it.
So he's quite fascinating because his wife, as she says, you do realise he's on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And then when you go, oh, yeah, of course he is. It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So then when you get to know John, I've got to know him now because I've worked with him. He was just ending up playing when I was coming on and as a kid, and you're like, whoa. But I know his traits now, and I get along really well with him.
He seems like a lovely guy.
Because you get to sort of a little bit more in this documentary that I watched gave me a click for me of like, oh, I get it.
I have to ask you, because I did love him when I was young. Whatever happened to Pete Sampras?
Pete Sampras, well, he married a famous Hollywood actress.
Did he?
We'll have to look up her name again. And he stays away from tennis.
Yeah.
Pete was a nice guy, but there were days when you'd walk in the locker room, you'd say hello and you'd have a conversation. The next day you'd look at like you'd never met you before. And, he's just stayed well away from the game, which is a shame because you're such a legendary player. But very quiet, I guess he's just been true to himself. That's what his personality was like, and that's how he stayed. So unlike Jim Courier, who's become one of my really great friends. And I posted a little happy birthday pic the other day because we first played against each other. I was 13, he was 14. And now, he's 55, 54, and I'm 54, and we still work together.
Yeah.
That's big chunk of your life. You've been a part of things, and like all of us, he hit the height of heights. Didn't quite hit his heights, but you've had these amazing roller coasters.
Yeah.
And every now and then, he's a great fellow for me, because every now and then in the booth, he'll push our mics down. He'll go, "Oh, would you get off being so negative?" And I'm like, "Oops, sorry, I'll be going down the wrong route," and he'll pull me back in. And so I really enjoy his company for that reason.
That's beautiful. What's something that you wish for yourself?
That I wish for myself? Look, I'm in a pretty good spot at the moment. So 2024, 25 have been probably two of the best years of my life.
Wow.
Personally, and we've talked about my family. My kids are doing really well. They're both in really good shape. I think they're going to be really good people. They like what they're doing. We've given them opportunity. They're out of the house. I've got 2 jobs that you couldn't have dreamt about having at this point. And so I just want to make sure that I can continue on doing that. And so the next part of that is I work hard, do a lot of days, a lot of hours. And it's to make sure that I give myself that time to enjoy while I am still working hard. So we love golf, a little bit of travel. So I plan a schedule that gives me both of those while I'm working hard. And I'll be happy for the next little bit. So things will change. There's no doubt. I've been through all of that. But I had a little period there where I've lost both my brothers. Dad was a bit earlier. I lost my mum a couple of years ago. And so I've had all those big adult things to deal with. And right now we've got a nice little block of happiness. And sit in it while it's there, because everybody knows that life changes quickly.
It's all a wave.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favourite prayer or saying or mantra?
Not really. No. No, I don't. It's funny, I haven't sat into those things because I think they change.
Yes.
I think I've learned that, you just got to be willing to stand up and keep going. And, I think that's the hard part about being a parent, because you want your kids to do all that. And I'm learning just to back away, shut up, get out of there. It's not yours anymore, it's theirs. That's probably a mantra at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Just let the kids be kids.
No, well, especially when they're young adults. Yeah. I don't have anything like that. That's
yes.
I'm probably yet to get into that sort of organicness, because I'm probably, as you can already tell, like, it's about what am I going to do next.
Yes.
So
how do you when you're doing so much, how do you kind of come back down? Like, do you meditate? How do you quiet the mind?
Golf is a big one for me.
Yeah.
So I find that really quite. I love the competition. So one thing I missed was competition. I have to compete, and I like that. I can't compete in tennis because I'm either too good or too old. And then golf gives you that, but it also gives you the opportunity to be out in a space where I used to get really intense with golf. I played bad. Now I don't care so much.
Yeah.
You got views, you got a bit of serenity, and it takes you a little bit on that journey, and it gives you 4 hours just to sink in and get away from some of the other stuff. So it takes me back to what repetition, competition, competitiveness. But it also then allows this opportunity to unwind and relax in that same environment.
And our final question, what is a life of greatness to you?
Well, it would be, for me, it would be about looking back on and reflecting on what I've done to say, I've done well. I haven't left much out there. Could I have been a better tennis player? Yes. But could I have tried any harder? No. Am I doing that in this part of my career? Same thing. Do I give something back? Yes. So there are boxes that you have in your life, like, you keep having a look at them and going, am I ticking them? I'm ticking them. And I've got to make sure I keep doing those.
Todd Woodbridge, I think my 10-year-old self would be so proud of me sitting with you right now. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought I'd be sitting here having these conversations, by the way? So,
and not in the context of playing tennis.
Yeah.
It's been lovely to chat to you today. Thank you. You
Pleasure.
have a really interesting story, so thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you for having me.